We've got a really, really great panel today. You've already met Rick and Eric, and I guess we'll just have you guys kind of come up here as I kind of call out your names. That way we can come on stage. So we've got Rick Khan from Mortenson, and Eric Chappell from Autodesk. And I'm just going to kind of go through the backgrounds of our other speakers so you guys have a little bit of a, anywhere you want. Pick a chair. We're really flexible here on this. So our next panelist is Lachmi Khemlani. She's a founder and editor of AECbytes. I've known Lachmi for a number of years, back when I was at Ellery Beckett and all sorts of other areas. As I said, she's a founder and editor of AECbytes, but she also has a PhD in architecture, and I'm just like in awe of that. It's I've got an architecture degree, but I don't have a PhD in architecture. So welcome. Next person I'll call up is Kevin Bredeson. Kevin's a director of virtual construction at Pepper Construction out of Chicago. Kevin and I also have been on a number of committees in the past, interoperability, AGC BIM forum. I'm looking for great things from Kevin today in the discussions. No pressure whatsoever. Dominique Pouliquen from Autodesk, Director of Market Development, IPG Reality Solutions. I think we're going to have some great discussions today around gaming technology, virtual reality. And another good friend of mine, Sean Burke from NBBJ, Digital Practice Leader at NBBJ, and also instructor of Dynamo. So that'll be one of the things that'll be coming up here later today. So I've kind of got these questions queued up, and I'm going to sit back after I ask the question and let the panel kind of jump in. So the first question for the panel is, what has been the biggest game changer in your industry utilizing BIM? And I think we'll have Kevin start. Do we have mics up here?
We do, right? It's coming through?
Perfect. Can everybody hear us? All right, start it off, Kevin.
All right, no pressure again. So sticking through that question, really the game changer, I'm going to say the game changer for today and for us has been, and shameless plug again, I'm speaking on scanning technology, reality capture, and how we're starting to capture our built environments. A lot of the work that we do for the company down in Chicago is focused around rehab work, renovation work. So how do we get that information quickly? How can we not only consume that information, but how can we distribute that information to our team? So we're investing heavily right now in various scanning technologies and ways to capture that reality and then again make that available to all of our project teams.
Who else wants to? Test. Eric?
Can you hear me? Okay. I think the cloud is a big game changer. You know, we're talking about a lot of products these days with 360 in the title. InfraWorks 360, BIM 360, Autodesk 360. And I think it certainly encourages collaboration with no geographic boundaries, but it also allows us to harness the power of cloud computing to do some things that we couldn't do before. For example, the model builder part of InfraWorks, it lets us build, you know, a 200 square mile cityscape or landscape in a matter of a few minutes, and it's through the power of the cloud that that's possible. So I think the cloud's a big game changer that's going on right now that we're right in the middle of. So.
Awesome. Lachmi, do you want to?
Yeah. I actually have a very different perspective on this, and this goes back to when I was actually working as an architect. This was in the pre-BIM days, and at that time we actually had to manually prepare the drawings, and every time a change was made in the design, which was very often, I had to manually go and update all the designs. This was really tedious for me, and I got so fed up that I eventually stopped actually practicing as an architect and I moved over to computers. From my perspective, I think the biggest game changer is not so much what's currently happening, it is what it is the ability that we have to actually extract drawings from the model, to be able to create the model and get the drawings automatically from that. And every time a change is made in the model, that it's automatically reflected in the drawings, so that we don't really have to go back and do this tedious work of going and manually updating the drawings anymore. So it's not so much as a game changer as going back to the basics, but this is what the technology was all about anyway, and I think it's going to ensure that we don't have more people like me leaving the profession because of frustration at the tediousness of the work.
Thank you. Dominic?
So leveraging on everything that has been said already, we try at Autodesk, we try to encompass all this process of capturing reality, computing based on reality data, and then creating meaningful deliverables from this reality data. We try to call that reality computing. Okay, so we're heavily pushing for reality computing now inside Autodesk. And so this is a capture, compute, and create workflows that's covering, of course, it starts with Recap 360, which is our platform which is device agnostic for capturing reality. But all the Autodesk portfolio at some point will leverage this reality data to create this meaningful information like updates on floor plans, something like that. So reality computing is something you will hear more and more from Autodesk. And this is something we are pushing very hard for.
All right. I think we'll start another question off here, but I think great conversations around that 360 platform in the cloud. Again, you're going to start hearing more and more conversations, I think, as we start looking at these offerings from Autodesk and also in some of the development tools that the companies are starting to use in the future. So here's one a little bit more, kind of get into the heart of some of these questions is, what are some of the biggest challenges facing the AEC industry in the future? Is it software, hardware, training, construction processes, model ownership, or mentoring? I kind of left it really open, but there's a lot of categories there. Sean, you want to start out?
Sure. Telling a little bit of a story about the digital practice group at my firm. We did an evaluation about a year ago about looking at all of the different software tools that we owned and used, and this is not a fake number. This is the fake number that everybody uses to talk about things, but 87 is the number of applications and plugins and everything else that we had. So the challenge that we kind of faced was, okay, how do we get our arms around that? How do we get people trained? And be realistic about the expectations that project managers have of their teams, that it's really hard for someone to be an expert in more than a handful of things, unless you're using them all the time, every day. So, and the time to get away from those projects of billable time to become an expert is such a challenge today. So, streamlining that process has been something that we've been focusing on.
I think that's why it's great for everyone here to be able to come and take some of the classes, also to start learning about some of those applications. Who wants to? Rick, do you want to jump in?
Hi, I want to add on to Sean's. I think, when we look at things from a lean perspective, it's people, process, platform, or product. The biggest variability in the process is really about people. It's about culture. And the most important thing we have to do is figure out how do we balance the people side of things with all the technology. Technology is changing so fast, so rapidly, 87 products. Sean talked about how does that tie into your core business? How does that drive value in your business? And the other part of it is leadership. There's a two-tier approach. It's leadership saying we shall do this, and then the folks on the ground, the folks at the entry levels, being able to have the flexibility, the opportunity to leverage these technologies to implement as part of their workflow. So it's really about people and culture rather than technology in a lot of aspects.
I'd like to go a completely different direction. You mentioned model ownership, and I've experienced that kind of firsthand prior to coming to Autodesk, which I've only been here less than 2 years. But we've got the capability. It's physically possible to build right from the model. And I'm going to stick with my experience and talk about the civil infrastructure industry, where we can build a model in Civil 3D, and it's physically possible to take that model and plug it into a GPS guided grading machine and actually make that thing real on the ground. But everyone's so scared of owning that model and being responsible for it that it goes through this extensive preparation process where there's a middleman that now has to process the model and take ownership of its accuracy in the field. So I see, and that slows down the process, and it really makes things more complicated. So I think model ownership is a big concern these days as well.
I guess the only thing I could add to a lot of the things that I'm hearing up here, right? It's a cultural change. Working for larger firms, Mortenson, Pepper, it's a huge turn, and we're viewed as change agents in our organization. We're very disruptive. Nowhere near 87, but I know we're in the 40s, if not 50s, of different applications that we test. We try to figure out ways to integrate them into our process and our workflow inside of our companies. The challenge is, how do we make this so it's not intimidating to the main user groups that we have to influence, we have to show value to? And that is something where I think the cloud, other technologies that are continuing to enhance, like reality capture, if you were to view this over the 5-year span right now, has gotten much, much easier to be able to digest all this information. So how can we continue along that path to make this very intuitive, very easy for our users to use, so it creates value for them right at the forefront, right after they do the work?
Try to engage the audience here. How many of you today only use 2 applications? How about 5? 10? 20? 30? Show of hands. 40? More than 40? Okay, we're come on, let's back up here a little bit. Okay, how many use more than 10 applications? Show of hands. Okay, how about more than 15? More than 20? Okay, so must be some of you are not using any application centers. So I'm not seeing any hands showing up, so I don't know about that. All right, let's move on to our next question. We hear a lot about owners requiring BIM as a deliverable. Who do you feel benefits most from the BIM process? And what have your experiences been with downstream uses of BIM data? Lachmi's jumping in.
Yeah, so this whole concept of BIM for FM or BIM for owners is really interesting, and we've been hearing a lot about that. I just think that we don't really have that many good case studies in the industry showing BIM for FM yet, and it's definitely true that owners have the most to benefit from BIM because they have to manage the facility throughout their life cycle and so on. But I just think that currently it seems like the most benefit of BIM is going to the designers and the contractors, and I think that's a good thing because it is helping them and making their tasks a lot more fun and a lot more efficient. And I just think that if the owners really want to get the benefits of BIM, they should jump in and they should be demanding better BIM applications for facilities management. Because right now it's like a black box. So you have, even if the contractor hands over a BIM model to the owner, it's not really getting updated and maintained. So the owner is not really using the BIM model to the extent that they could. So if they really want to get the benefits of BIM, they need to jump in and be more aggressive and in demanding that better BIM for FM applications are out there that they can use.
So how many of you have had projects that you've worked on where the contractual requirements were to deliver a model? A few. And how many of the owners actually knew what they were getting? See, I think that's been our biggest problem is, it's written in there. It's sort of like boilerplate that they heard at some conference that their lawyers told them to include, but they don't know why. And ultimately, there's some person in the basement of the building that's still managing paper drawings in the drawer. So, I mean, yeah, to Lachmi's point, there's huge gap and huge opportunity there. And I agree that right now it's the designers and the contractors that are benefiting most. I think what hasn't been said yet is that the fabricators are actually sort of next to sort of really truly benefit from this. Direct model to fabrication stuff is already starting to happen. It's just very limited right now. And I think the only way that we can really take advantage of that is to think about changing the physical process itself instead of trying to overlay a digital process onto an old manual way of fabricating buildings. We have to look at building buildings differently by the advantages that the software gives us.
Yeah, all right, I'm going to make some trouble here. So it's really frustrating, this whole topic, FM and BIM. What we need to focus on, again, back to the people. You know, Joe the plumber, right, who's actually the guy who's maintaining the building, there's no way in hell he's going to be using a model when something goes wrong. He wants to know how to shut down the zone so he can fix it, all right? When 2 o'clock in the morning comes around, the model's not going to be part of the process, all right? We have to figure out how the operator is going to be leveraging and using the information developed by the design and construction team to operate their facility. And BIM really has no place right now. The reality is we have consultants out there selling customers, oh, BIM is the future. It may be the future, but the reality is the information in the models is part of their future. How they're going to operate their facility, how they're going to leverage this to manage their campus is the reality. Reality capture, I see BIM as a placeholder. It's great for design and construction. There's really not a lot of place for it in operations. The FM information from the model connected with reality capture in a short future, we're going to see photogrammetry, videogrammetry really playing a role in reality capture. Location awareness, the model is good for the next project when they start. It's a good starting point. It's a good deliverable. But we're going to see technologies merge, and the BIM in operations, that's a short-term and short-lived philosophy, I think. I think we're wasting our time.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think one of the struggles that I have a lot of conversation with owners about is that. What is that level of detail? What is the amount of information that you're giving me at the end of the project? And it becomes a big conversation. One is, do you want editable information at the end of the job or don't you? Because a lot of the things when we take over in coordination and construction, right, gets interpreted into the Navisworks platform or the Glue platform, depending upon the project and the applications that you're using. But a lot of that is information, DWGs, IFCs, all this other information are getting consolidated into a federated model, non-editable. Once you hand that over to that owner, he's looking at you going, okay, what do I do now? And when they go to that next project or it's a renovation or something else, they have dead-ended information that they can't utilize and push forward, which is what ultimately I think they want to do when they're going forth with trying to create requirements and create the need for this kind of information. And right now, that has been the biggest divide that I've seen working with a lot of the owners.
So if I'm understanding correctly, do you guys think there should be a BIM for owners application that either simplifies the process and consolidates models, or do you not think there's a place for owners to be utilizing BIM data at all?
No, I think BIM data, absolutely. I think the model is a good starting point for their renovation work, and it's a deliverable, just like we deliver 2D drawings in history, right? I think that the challenge is trying to fit, the model deliverable into a format that makes sense for the customer. And the reality is they're interested in life cycle cost and energy performance and building performance. The model doesn't really have a place yet there. Should it have a place? I don't know. It's Hollywood stuff, right? It's what you see in Mission Impossible. I don't know.
Lachmi's anxious to say.
Sorry. No, I'm a technologist, so I strongly believe that there should be a BIM application for FM, and I think it's a real pity that Autodesk is not kind of continuing to develop its BIM applications further so that there is a BIM application for owners, which is a simplified BIM, and it just has the information that is needed for operations and maintenance, but they should be doing it.
And there might be a Navisworks solution even, and it doesn't have to necessarily be Revit.
Point taken.
All right. Awesome. Good discussions here. Let's go to another question. It's a little bit more kind of current to what we discussed here at the early morning presentations. We've seen a lot of discussion around virtual reality and gaming technology, obviously the presentation this morning. What has your experience or success been with virtual reality, augmented reality, and what's the next challenge ahead for this technology? Who wants to start out?
Well, I guess I can start since
Okay.
I presented on it. Yeah, I think we've seen a tremendous amount of value. I mean, since 2007, we've been experimenting with some form of augmented reality or virtual reality to find ways to better do what we do. But it's moved from us in construction to really the design phase. How do we help our design partner help them get to the best decision for our customer? To get to the best decision, you need to come up with the best amount of information so the customer can make an informed decision. So using the technologies to do that is great. Where we are today is good, but just in the last 3 months, Unreal Engine is now free, Unity's free, like all these, you see the Gear 1, you see all of this like consumer level technology merging or converging into our business, or the AEC business. So we have to take advantage of it. Some of the things that are happening now that you'll start seeing in the commercial market is haptic feedback. So being able to locate your hands in the immersion space. You see leap motion and technologies like that. The ability to have multiple players experience the same space at the same time. Those are some of the things that are happening. And granted, all of the costs are driving down. Oculus Rift is $400, right? A cave system costs millions of dollars to build, right? And that's why it's only 3 or 4 in the country. So there's so many things happening, and I think it's the convergence.
Yeah. Dominic?
Yeah, another area of interest for Autodesk is also how to leverage augmented reality in the construction phase, okay? How can we make sure that what's being built conforms to the design intent? And if not, by some reality capture technologies, how can we update the drawing in order to make it fit to what's being built? It's a challenge, so it's definitely at the research phase, because, you know, being able to, the point is about geolocating any single user in a big space. Could be a construction site, can be big. So having some technologies like indoor mapping and things like that, indoor location, is still a challenge. So, but being able to bring the data, the design data on the site and comparing to what's being built, this is where we see a good, a really interesting future for augmented reality, definitely.
I attended a hackathon last September in Seattle, and there was a local company that was there, VR Design, and it really hit home for me when I was able to put on, and they actually have a wireless headset that they've developed, so there's no like big backpack that you have to wear. So it not only are the costs coming down, but it's also more comfortable. And you could pick up a little paint gun and walk through the building virtually, and then just spray paintballs everywhere that you thought that, you know, that the design needed to change in those areas. So you could actually use it as a 3D markup tool in an interactive way that was kind of new. I think seasickness is becoming a thing of the past as well, so that's a good thing.
How many in the audience are using any type of virtual reality tool? A couple of you? How many of you have gone to the booth and looked at it here at Midwest University? All right, more. That's good. That's good. All right. Next question. I think this is kind of this is a panelist opportunity to kind of tell Autodesk what you think about the future. So most are attending are most likely using Autodesk products. What should Autodesk focus on in the future? Desktop subscription, collaboration tools, 360 integration, or project tools that focus on portfolio management. Or something that you guys come to the top of your head right now that you think are some of the things that maybe there should be some redirection, or you think they're going in the right direction with?
More open source.
Oh.
No, I think all of this, but for my part, which is a more on reality computing and reality solution, we are trying to push the idea that the point cloud is a model, okay? The point cloud is now becoming a native citizen in all the Autodesk portfolio, from AutoCAD to Revit to Inventor to Navisworks, etc. So why model? Because the truth is coming from the point cloud, okay? So please consider the point cloud as the source of trustful information on which you can measure, create floor plans, whatever you need to do. So definitely this concept that I was describing, reality computing, capture, compute, create, is becoming predominant in everything we do at Autodesk. And more as you will see for the FY16 versions of the AutoCAD or InfraWorks or Revit, there are more and more capability to leverage this point cloud information in the design process. So why start from a blank sheet of paper when you can use reality as it is?
Right down the line.
Well, you stoked the fire a little bit. So with the 360, pricing coming out, and now we're changing over to subscriptions and all the other things that are constantly happening. I mean, I guess sitting from where I sit and trying to direct and make decisions and strategize and try and figure out where should the company be heading, trying to look 2 years out, 4 years out, all those things. It's very confusing right now to understand all the different pricing models that are available. A 360 might fall in line here, whereas it's going to be a subscription there. I think if we can start to clear up those lines right now and understand what are we buying, how are we making those decisions? Are we buying it for the year? Are we buying it on an annual? Are we buying it for a 3-year? Whatever that happens to be. Right now, I know there's a lot of confusion along the circles that I talk in, and it just seems like if we clear that up, we could get a little further ahead.
Okay, again, I would have to speak to this question as a technologist. I just think that Autodesk, going forward, they should be focusing more on developing more expertise in our tools. I find it kind of still quite ridiculous that as architects, we have to sit and even model out every little detail of the building when the software should be smart enough to basically do all the details for you. You should just be able to conceptualize what you want to create, and the software should be able to smart enough to actually put the model together for you without you having to go and model every little bit of it in detail. And I also think in addition to that, Autodesk should be focusing a lot more on analysis tools, because ultimately the whole point of computing is that we need to be able to evaluate what we are doing. So the more analysis and evaluation tools we have to evaluate what we are designing, the better the quality of the design product is going to be.
I've actually got Wow, tough room. I'm going to flip that around and say one thing I'm seeing a great deal of increase in is an awareness within Autodesk that this isn't a one-way relationship. We're not just developing products and putting them out there and letting you fend for yourselves. More and more every day, we're understanding that this is a two-way relationship. And that for us to put out products that are useful to you, we need to hear from you. We need to let you be part of the process. And if you go out and you look around on the Autodesk different web properties and things that we offer, there are lots of ways for users to tell us what you need and what you want. In fact, very soon you're going to see an idea station open for InfraWorks, where we're inviting folks to tell us what you think the product needs. And it's an opportunity for you to actually interact with the developers who work on the software. We have tons of other programs. I mean, a lot of you, I'm sure, are involved in beta programs. And we've got the InfraWorks Rolling Sandbox, which is a kind of a beta program on steroids. But we get it. We understand that we need to hear from you folks. So please take advantage of the ways that we put out there for you to give us feedback, because we are listening. We can't do everything all at once. And we get a large volume already, and part of the effort is to prioritize that and figure out what you guys need the most. But please let us know. We're listening.
I guess I'll be brief. I just want to echo what Kevin started saying about the pricing models. And it's 360, BIM 360. It's almost like pick a platform. It's really important for us, you guys in the audience, and me and the folks here, when we talk to our leadership team, and they say, oh, there's an A360, oh, there's a BIM 3, but don't we have 360? No, that's BIM 360. And it's just, the marketing thing needs to kind of get ironed out, and the changing in the licensing is really complicated. And remember, for us, the guys who sell it up to leadership, we need to be clear, and if we're not understanding what that means, that means no sale. All right. So I mean, just from a marketing standpoint, it's important. The last thing what Lachmi talked about, the CTO at AU talked about, we're used to telling computers what to do, and I love where you're going with that. We want to move from that to telling computers what we want to achieve, the type of performance, the type of design, and let the computer figure it out. I mean, the computing, I think that's fascinating. That's the future.
So just to we are getting better, definitely. But everything we develop now is desktop and web, definitely. Look at, again, to my area of expertise, which is Recap 360. We have now Recap 360, which is purely desktop. No, sorry, not only desktop, but desktop and web, okay? First, and also the flexibility given by the subscription model. For example, again, on Recap, last year we had only Recap the free version or Recap Pro, which is $3,600 per year. So this year we introduce an intermediate level, which is only $500. So everybody dealing with point cloud has a possibility to access the technology for only $500 a year. So this is so there's more flexibility in the business model. I understand that's not very clear. In-house sometimes as well, it's not very clear either. So but it's getting there. I think on everything is going to subscription, everything is going to desktop and web, and so we have to. This is a future.
All right, last comment.
Yeah, I mean, my opening comment was kind of only half joking, but the sort of the less is more kind of approach, I think, is a lesson that I take based on my comment about the number of applications that we have. Autodesk has something like 300 applications in their portfolio, and it gets confusing for us as customers to know what we should be using. And also we see some things that are in other industries that we really want to take advantage of, but we don't need the whole tool. We just need certain subsets of that feature. So it's very challenging for us. So, if there's a way of, mash up applications or just, kind of streamlining the portfolio a little bit to make it easier for the customer, that would be fantastic. And
I just want to conclude with thanking all the panelists for coming up here today. A round of applause for